Welcome. This is a calm story. This evening, we explore one of the mysteries of our world. You can listen with curiosity, or you can simply relax. There is nothing you need to do. Just listen, and let the story begin. Let us drift south to a land of warmth and gentle summer days. In the heart of Florida, near Orlando, summer afternoons have their own quiet rhythm. The air is warm, heavy with moisture, and carries the scent of grass and earth after long sunlight. Far across the horizon, clouds slowly gather, moving like soft blankets across the sky. Soon, a flash of lightning dances among them, and a low, rolling thunder follows, echoing gently across the streets and trees. These daily thunderstorms appear almost like clockwork as warm, humid air rises from the land and meets cooler breezes from the ocean. Rain begins as fine droplets, then settles into a soft, consistent tapping on rooftops and leaves. Streams of water gather in small puddles, reflecting the grey skies above. It is a rhythm repeated each summer, a natural symphony that teaches patience, reminding us that storms, though fleeting, leave the world refreshed and alive. Far away, where mountains meet the sea, along the coasts of northern Japan, in Aomori, winter clouds carry a gentle weight, heavy with snow. Each year, these clouds return faithfully, releasing thick, soft flakes that cover streets, rooftops, and mountainsides. The landscape transforms into a quiet, glimmering white, and even the simplest sounds seem hushed beneath the snow. These storms form as icy winds from Siberia meet the relatively warmer waters of the Sea of Japan, creating a repeating rhythm of snowfall. Snow drifts collect along narrow alleys and curling riverbanks, while pine trees bend gracefully under the weight of each delicate flake. As you imagine this, you can feel the slow, soothing hush of a world wrapped in white. A gentle pause, a long, quiet breath from the earth itself. Imagine a place where clouds seem to linger forever. High in the hills of northeastern India, Cherrapunji receives some of the heaviest rainfall on Earth. During monsoon season, clouds roll over the mountains like great grey waves. Rain falls steadily, sometimes for weeks, tapping and drumming on leaves, roofs, and rivers. Streams swell and waterfalls pour from steep cliffs, joining into a symphony of liquid motion. This continuous rain is created when warm, moist air from the Bay of Bengal rises to meet the mountains. Each downpour follows another, creating an endless cycle of renewal. The land drinks deeply, rivers rise and fall, and life thrives in this rhythm. The monsoon is not only a storm, but also a lesson in patience and persistence. And imagining it now can ease the mind, letting thoughts flow as slowly and naturally as the streams below. Let's sail toward the southern tip of the world, near Cape Horn, where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet. Winds and waves seem to never rest. Sailors of old called it the graveyard of ships, for storms come again and again, rolling over one another in endless motion. Waves tower and break against jagged cliffs, and gusts of wind howl across rocky coasts with a timeless rhythm. Even as you imagine the chaos, there is also a strange serenity. Storms rise, peak, and fade, leaving behind a world that is reshaped, polished, and renewed. The winds whisper tales of distant lands, of journeys long completed, teaching that even the fiercest storms have a rhythm, and each wave, each gust, contributes to the endless flow of nature. Climb with me to the highest peaks, where the air is thin and wild. At the top of Mount Washington, the air is thin and cold, and winds roar like a living creature. Some of the fastest wind speeds ever recorded sweep across this summit, lifting snow and cloud in a swirling dance. These conditions last for much of the year, shaping the mountain and challenging anyone who dares climb it. The storm is relentless yet mesmerizing. Snow plumes stream from rocky outcrops, clouds swirl in patterns that seem eternal, and the wind carries a distant echo of thunder across the valleys. Observing from a safe distance, one can feel the pulse of the mountain, constant, strong, yet calm when respected. A gentle reminder that some storms are always present, shaping the world quietly and persistently. Now, let your mind drift to the southern oceans. Between 40 and 50 degrees south latitude, a belt of powerful winds circles the globe. Known as the Roaring Forties, these westerlies travel unbroken over endless oceans, shaping waves and currents with a steady, unyielding rhythm. Ships that sail here must respect the wind's constant energy, for it never seems to rest. The Roaring Forties remind us that air itself can carry motion in patterns that last for centuries. Waves rise and fall like soft, slow breathing, and the horizon seems to stretch without end. It is a reminder that the world moves in rhythms larger than any of us. Yet these patterns can be quietly comforting when observed, like the slow, predictable turning of time. Picture a lake so vast, the sky leans close to it. Over Lake Superior, winter air meets warmer lake waters to create snowstorms that move across the land in long bands. Snow falls steadily, blanketing trees and towns in soft white. These storms can linger for days, returning each year like a whispered promise. The interaction of cold and warm air above the lake creates a natural rhythm, a constant movement of water and air. Snow collects along roads and riverbanks, and the flakes dance slowly in the wind. Observing this imagined winter scene, you can feel the gentle cadence of nature, each snowflake part of a quiet symphony that repeats season after season. Drift east to the warm seas of the tropics. The Bay of Bengal is a nursery of storms, where warm waters breathe life into cyclones again and again. Clouds swirl over the water, forming immense spirals that move slowly toward the coasts. These storms are fueled by heat and moisture, building energy as they travel. Cyclones here remind us that even powerful forces follow natural cycles. Waves rise and fall, winds spin in repeating patterns, and each storm eventually passes, leaving the ocean renewed. Imagining these storms softly from afar can calm the mind, showing that even chaos has its rhythm, and each cycle teaches balance and movement in the natural world. Now, imagine a rugged coastline kissed by icy winds. Near Newfoundland, the North Atlantic meets jagged cliffs and islands. Cold winds sweep across the sea, creating frequent gales and rolling fog that drifts inland. Waves crash rhythmically against rocky shores, and ships must navigate carefully through this recurring tempest. Though powerful, these storms have a subtle lesson. Each wind and fog bank follows the patterns of the ocean, forming, fading, and returning in cycles. Listening to the imagined sounds of the wind and waves can slow the heartbeat and bring focus to the rhythm of nature. a lullaby sung by the earth itself. And far across a sunlit tropical sea, above the Gulf of Carpentaria, long, rolling cloud formations stretch across the sky. Known as morning squalls, they appear like slow-moving ribbons, bringing soft rain in sweeping bands. These storms develop quickly and then fade, only to return with the season's warmth. As the rain taps on imagined waters and shorelines, it creates a soothing, repeating pattern. Heat, moisture, and wind meet in a quiet dance, reminding us that storms are not just chaos, but a carefully balanced rhythm of nature. Closing your eyes, you can almost feel the gentle spray of rain and hear its soft, steady rhythm, carrying you into calm rest. Now, let your mind wander to misty hills and lush greenery. The Western Ghats, a chain of mountains along India's west coast, come alive during the monsoon. Thick clouds rise over steep slopes, releasing rain that pours steadily onto the dense forests below. Rivers swell, waterfalls cascade, and every leaf seems to glisten as the rain softens the earth. These rain bands form when moist air from the Arabian Sea is lifted by the mountains, cooling and condensing into endless sheets of droplets. The storms can last hours, sometimes days, before fading, only to return again with the rhythm of the season. Walking in your mind along a forest trail here, you can imagine the gentle tapping of raindrops above your head, the scent of wet soil rising, and the quiet, steady hum of the world being nourished. It is a lesson in patience, in how nature's cycles bring life and calm, over and over. Drift now across tropical waters bathed in golden sunlight. Above the Java Sea, clouds gather quickly in the late morning, stretching across the horizon like soft, rolling blankets. These monsoon squalls form from warm, humid air rising off the water, colliding with cooler breezes that drift down from distant islands. Rain falls in sweeping bands, often accompanied by gentle rumblings of thunder in the distance. Fishermen and villagers have long noticed the pattern. These storms often return day after day during certain seasons. They shape the rhythm of life here, guiding travel, planting, and rest. Imagine watching the squalls from a quiet boat, feeling the soft mist on your skin, listening to the distant crash of waves, and knowing that this gentle yet powerful rhythm has repeated for centuries. It is nature's quiet teaching, a cycle that invites calm and reflection. Now, follow me to the narrow mountain passes of Mexico. Along the Gulf of Tehuantepec, strong, dry winds known as the Tehuano sweep suddenly from the mountains down to the ocean. These gusts can reach impressive speeds, sending waves racing across the water and clouds hurrying along the sky. The winds often return in the cooler months, a reminder of how geography shapes weather in predictable, yet awe-inspiring ways. Imagine standing on the shore, feeling the pressure of the air as it surges past, and watching the frothy waves form patterns that seem endless. Though strong, these winds have a rhythm, coming and going in cycles dictated by temperature, pressure, and the mountains themselves. It is as if the earth is breathing through wind, and you are witnessing its quiet pulse. Let's drift to the wide, open plains of South America. Across the pampas of Argentina, the pampero winds sweep in suddenly, often after a long stretch of stillness. They bring squall lines, fast-moving bands of heavy rain and wind that can stretch for miles. These storms roll across the flat landscape with a relentless grace, shaping the soil and lifting the dust into long, curling ribbons. These winds form as cold air pushes across warmer plains, creating a dramatic contrast that repeats regularly with the seasons. Imagine standing in the vast open fields, feeling the wind press against your skin, hearing the soft roar of rain and grass, and seeing the clouds stretch infinitely across the horizon. It is a quiet demonstration of nature's power and its predictable rhythm, a storm that arrives, teaches, and then passes, leaving behind a calm, renewed world. Now, travel up the eastern slopes of the Andes, where the sun warms the rocks. On the dry, rugged slopes of the Andes, the zonda wind sweeps down with surprising speed. It is a hot, dry gust, carrying dust and a hint of heat from the mountains to the valleys below. These winds return again and again, especially in the winter months, creating a cycle of sudden, dramatic air currents that shape the land and the people's lives. As you imagine the wind rustling through the trees and grasses, you can hear its soft roar blending with the distant murmur of the mountains. It teaches a quiet lesson. Storms do not always bring rain. Some bring movement, change, and the subtle shaping of the world. And when the zonda passes, the air settles once more, warm and calm, inviting rest and reflection. Now, drift westward to the sun-baked valleys of Southern California. In the dry hills and canyons of Southern California, the Santa Ana winds sweep through like invisible fingers of air. These gusts are hot, dry, and persistent, carrying dust and the faint scent of sagebrush. They often appear in autumn and winter, returning again and again, shaping the land, the fires, and even the moods of the people below. The winds form when high pressure builds inland and air rushes toward the coast, tumbling over mountains and valleys. Imagine standing on a hilltop as the wind presses gently against your face, moving the grasses in waves, carrying tiny clouds of dust, and whispering stories from the desert far away. Though they can be strong and sudden, the Santa Ana winds follow a predictable rhythm, a reminder that even the wildest forces of nature can have a quiet order. Drift now to the rolling vineyards and lavender fields of southern France. The Mistral is a cold wind that rushes down the Rhône Valley, sweeping over the hills and fields with a steady, unrelenting force. It can last for days, flattening grasses, bending trees, and carrying a crisp clarity in its air. Even as it sweeps through villages and vineyards, there is a sense of rhythm, a pattern that has persisted for centuries. The Mistral forms when cold air from the north is funneled through mountains toward the Mediterranean, creating a strong, steady gust. Imagine standing among the olive trees, feeling the cool wind brush past, hearing the soft rustle of leaves, and watching the clouds glide above in slow, steady arcs. It is nature's quiet reminder that even cold, relentless forces have their own gentle cadence. Now, let us sail to the northern Adriatic, where cliffs meet the sea. Along the Adriatic coast, the Bora wind bursts down from the mountains with sudden energy. It can last for hours or even days, carrying gusts strong enough to sway ships and scatter the waves. The sky turns a soft silver gray as clouds race along the horizon, moving at the wind's command. The Bora forms as cold, dense air slides down steep mountain slopes, rushing toward the warmer sea. Imagine standing on a cliff, feeling the wind press against your body, hearing its low roar over the waves, and watching the sea below ripple with the invisible force. Though dramatic, these gusts follow a pattern, returning with the seasons, reminding us that storms are not chaotic, but a carefully orchestrated dance of air and land. Drift across tropical mountains and sunlit waters of Central America. Near Costa Rica and Nicaragua, narrow mountain gaps create a fascinating wind phenomenon. The Papagayo winds surge suddenly through these passes, carrying ocean breezes over the land and into the warm tropical waters. They can appear in bursts, repeating seasonally, shaping waves, clouds, and the rhythm of life in coastal villages. The wind is formed when pressure differences push air through the narrow gaps in the mountains, releasing bursts of movement that can last for hours. Imagine standing on a quiet beach, feeling the gentle push of the wind against your skin, hearing it ruffle the palm fronds, and watching the waves ripple rhythmically. Even the strongest gusts follow patterns, teaching that all storms, no matter how sudden, have their own quiet rhythm. Now, wander to the wide-open plains of Patagonia. Across the flat plains of Chubut in Argentina, strong winds never seem to rest. They sweep endlessly from the Andes, shaping dust, grasses, and trees alike. The gusts arrive seasonally, sometimes for days at a time, rolling across the landscape with steady, persistent energy. These winds are formed as cold air pushes down from the mountains, meeting the warmer plains. Imagine standing in the middle of this open land, feeling the wind press gently yet firmly against you, listening to the soft rustle of long grasses bending in waves, and seeing clouds moving slowly across a vast horizon. Even in their power, these winds are part of a larger pattern, a repeated rhythm that reminds us of nature's patience, persistence, and quiet beauty. Now, let your mind drift to the rugged eastern shores of Canada. Along the shores of the Bay of Fundy, the tides are unlike anywhere else on Earth. Twice a day, immense volumes of water surge in and out, creating waves, whirlpools, and a quiet, repeating rhythm across the bay. The water rises and falls with such force that it can almost feel alive, rolling across the coast as if breathing with the land itself. This phenomenon is caused by the unique shape of the bay, funneling the Atlantic waters and amplifying the tides. Imagine standing on the rocky shore, feeling the cool mist on your skin, hearing the soft roar of waves colliding and retreating, and watching the currents swirl in endless patterns. Each cycle repeats with clockwork precision, a natural reminder that even water has rhythm, and that the world's movements can lull the mind into calm observation. Let's sail far south, to the wild waters where continents nearly touch. The Drake Passage, between South America and Antarctica, is home to relentless storms. Winds race across the open water, whipping waves into long, rolling crescendos that never seem to end. Ships navigating this passage must respect the power of the ocean, for the storms are frequent, strong, and persistent. These storms are fueled by the collision of cold polar air with warmer northern currents, creating near-constant turbulence. Picture the water moving endlessly beneath a sky full of soft grey clouds, waves rising and falling like the gentle inhaling and exhaling of the sea itself. Even in their wildness, these storms have a rhythm, a repetition that can teach patience, awe, and the quiet appreciation of the ocean's vastness. Now, drift across tropical waters shimmering under the sun. The Tasman Sea lies between Australia and New Zealand, a place where air, water, and heat combine to create explosive cyclones. These storms form quickly, gaining strength as they swirl across the warm waters, then fade and are replaced by new storms, again and again during the Southern Hemisphere summer. Imagine watching from a safe distance as clouds roll and spin, the wind tugging gently at your hair, and waves building and falling in long, hypnotic patterns. These cyclones show how nature's power can be both sudden and repetitive, a reminder that storms are part of Earth's enduring cycles, shaping the land and waters while teaching balance and respect for the elements. Let's float now over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Beneath the calm surface of the North Pacific lies a hidden rhythm. The gyres, slow-moving whirlpools of water that spin endlessly in circular patterns. These currents may not roar like storms above the waves, but they move with quiet power, carrying water, nutrients, and even debris across thousands of miles. The gyres are shaped by wind, Earth's rotation, and ocean currents, repeating the same paths year after year. Imagine drifting in a small boat, feeling the gentle motion beneath you, and noticing how even the unseen forces of water create patterns that endure. It is a soft lesson that storms are not always loud. Some are slow, persistent, and invisible, yet still shape the world in profound ways. Now, follow the currents northward along the eastern coast of the Americas. The Gulf Stream, a warm ocean current, acts as a highway for storms. Air and water interact along its path, creating low-pressure systems that grow, fade, and often redevelop, one after another. Hurricanes and winter storms often follow this invisible trail, moving in a rhythm that has repeated for centuries. Imagine the water moving below, warm and steady, while clouds above gather and swirl, bringing soft rain and gentle winds. The Gulf Stream shows that even storms have pathways, patterns, and repetition. By imagining this, the mind can relax, noting the predictability of nature amidst its immense power, a reminder that cycles exist in everything around us. Now, drift to a narrow strip of water between two ancient lands. The English Channel stretches between England and France, a corridor where ocean and sky meet in a dance of wind and water. Here, storms arrive often, sometimes gently, sometimes with fierce gales that bend masts and churn waves into rolling, frothy ribbons. Even when the sun peeks through, the memory of earlier storms lingers, leaving a soft mist on the water and salt-scented air over the cliffs. These storms form as Atlantic winds are funneled along the channel, colliding with cooler coastal air. Waves rise and fall in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, crashing against rocky shores and sandy beaches alike. Imagine standing on a quiet cliff, feeling the cool, persistent wind press against your cheeks, listening to the distant roar of waves, and watching the clouds stretch across the horizon. Over centuries, sailors have learned that even the wildest storms follow patterns, a rhythm of nature that can calm the mind when observed from a safe distance. As the gales fade, the waters settle, and the sun breaks through, revealing a glittering path of light across the sea. The cycle repeats again and again, a soft, eternal lesson. Storms may be powerful, but they are also gentle teachers, shaping land, water, and thought alike. Drift now to the cold northern waters, where ice floats silently on the waves. In the Labrador Sea, winter brings storms known as polar lows. These compact, intense weather systems form quickly, bringing heavy snow, gusty winds, and swells that ripple across icy waters. What is remarkable is their repetition. They form, fade, and are replaced by new lows, as if the sea itself breathes in measured cycles. These storms are born where cold Arctic air meets relatively warmer sea currents, creating pockets of turbulence. Imagine watching from a quiet iceberg or distant shoreline, the snowflakes drifting lazily across the grey sky, the wind pressing softly against your coat, and the waves moving rhythmically beneath the clouds. Though intense, these polar lows follow a pattern, appearing like a heartbeat of the Northern Ocean, a pulse that repeats with clockwork precision. As you imagine the icebergs creaking gently, and the snow settling in soft layers across the frozen landscape, the repetition of these storms teaches a quiet patience. Nature moves slowly, predictably, even in the coldest, wildest places, offering a rhythm that can soothe the mind and invite restful sleep. Sail farther east, where icy waters meet jagged coasts. The Sea of Okhotsk, near Russia's far east, is a place where cold winds sweep over floating ice and frozen shores, creating ice storms that can trap ships in drifting fields. These storms are harsh, yet they follow repeating patterns each winter, shaped by cold Arctic air and the slow movement of the currents. Imagine standing on the deck of a small vessel, the wind biting your cheeks, snow swirling in the air, and ice cracking softly beneath the hull. Waves rise and fall with a quiet, relentless rhythm, echoing the pulse of the ocean itself. Each gust, each swirl of snow, is part of a pattern repeated every year, reminding observers of the immense patience and power of nature. The icy wind may howl, yet beneath it, the water moves steadily, carrying life and memory along with it. The storms fade, ice drifts slowly, and the horizon glows softly with pale sunlight breaking through clouds. Observing these cycles, the mind can feel the calm order hidden within even the harshest conditions, a lullaby of rhythm in the frozen seas. Drift now to a narrow, sun-warmed sea nestled between deserts. Along the Red Sea, thunderstorms appear repeatedly, especially in the hot, humid months. Moist air rises from the water, meeting warmer desert breezes, creating clouds that gather, darken, and release sheets of rain. Thunder rolls softly, lightning flashes across the horizon, and the waves shimmer beneath the cloudy sky. These recurring storms are part of a natural cycle, appearing like clockwork each season. Imagine drifting in a small boat, feeling the raindrops tap gently against the surface, hearing the low rumble of distant thunder, and watching the clouds stretch slowly across the sky. The rhythm is gentle and hypnotic, a pattern that has repeated for centuries. Even as the storm passes and sunlight returns, the Red Sea holds the memory of the storm. The smell of rain on the water, the soft glint of wet sand, the lingering whisper of wind. It is a quiet lesson in the recurring power of nature. Storms may come, move, and fade, yet they leave behind a sense of renewal and calm that carries the mind gently toward rest. And now, imagine the same sunlit sea, but with a different kind of storm. Along the shores of the Red Sea, winds lift fine dust from the deserts, creating storms of sand and particles that drift across the water in soft, rolling waves. These storms can return again and again, especially when the heat of the day meets cooler night air, forming a natural rhythm across the coast. Imagine standing on the sandy shore, the wind brushing against your face, carrying the scent of earth and salt. Tiny grains swirl slowly in the air, sparkling in the sun like flecks of gold. The movement of the dust is rhythmic, almost hypnotic, a quiet dance between land, air, and water. These dust storms teach a gentle lesson. Storms are not only rain or snow or wind. Some are soft, subtle, and even beautiful in their repetition. They remind us that nature moves in cycles, shaping the world slowly and consistently, while offering a quiet, comforting rhythm that can carry the mind toward relaxation and sleep. Drift across a sun-baked sea, where desert meets water. Along the shores of the Persian Gulf, the Shomal winds rise and sweep across the landscape. These strong, dry winds lift fine desert dust into the air, creating soft, rolling dust storms that stretch over cities, beaches, and shallow waters. They appear regularly, especially during summer months, shaping the land and painting the skies with a pale golden haze. The Shomal winds form as high-pressure air moves from inland deserts toward the cooler Gulf waters. Imagine standing on a quiet dune, feeling the warm gusts brushing against your skin, seeing tiny grains of sand shimmer in the sunlight, and listening to the soft whisper of wind as it moves across the dunes. Though powerful, these storms follow a repeating rhythm, a gentle reminder that even the desert has a pulse, and the movement of wind and sand is part of nature's quiet, patient cycle. Now, drift east to the warm tropical waters of the South China Sea. In the South China Sea, the air is thick and humid, carrying the scent of the ocean and tropical forests. Here, typhoons form repeatedly, building slowly over the warm waters, gathering clouds, wind, and rain. They move in predictable paths, striking islands, coasts, and open seas in patterns that have repeated for centuries. Imagine the sky filling with rolling clouds, the wind pressing softly as the first droplets of rain tap on the water, and waves slowly rising in response to the gentle push of the approaching storm. The typhoons are fierce, yet they follow a rhythm dictated by heat, pressure, and the curvature of the earth. Observing them from afar, the mind can relax, noting that even storms that seem chaotic are part of a larger, repeating order, a natural melody that carries both water and life. Sail now along a warm, sun-dappled channel, where water and sky meet. The Mozambique Channel, lying between Madagascar and mainland Africa, is a nursery for tropical cyclones. Warm waters heat the air above, causing clouds to rise, swirl, and release soft sheets of rain. These storms often repeat during the cyclone season, moving in spirals across the ocean, shaping waves, winds, and weather in predictable ways. Imagine standing on the deck of a quiet boat, feeling gentle breezes as clouds gather slowly above, listening to the soft murmur of rain beginning in the distance, and watching the ocean respond to the storm's rhythms. Cyclones like these teach us that even the most powerful forces follow natural cycles, forming, growing, and fading in repeated patterns, and that observing these cycles can bring calm understanding and relaxation. Now, imagine a sea surrounded by sunlit hills and ancient villages. Over the Mediterranean Sea, small but intense storms known as medicanes occasionally form. These storms mimic tropical cyclones, spinning clouds, wind, and rain across the waters, only to fade as quickly as they appear. Though brief, they often repeat in certain seasons, teaching that even smaller storms follow nature's rhythm. Picture the clouds spiraling slowly over a quiet coastal town, raindrops falling on terracotta roofs, and the wind pressing gently against olive trees. Waves move in soft rolling patterns, carrying the memory of the storm across the blue expanse. Each medicane is a gentle lesson in the balance between air, water, and heat, and in the predictability of natural rhythms. Observing them can calm the mind, letting imagination drift as freely as the clouds above. And now, drift once more to a narrow mountain pass where wind sweeps the water. In the Gulf of Tehuantepec, strong seasonal winds surge through mountain gaps, racing across the warm waters in powerful, steady bursts. These windstorms can last hours, sometimes days, appearing with near-perfect regularity each season. They shape waves into long, rolling lines that stretch toward the horizon, a gentle reminder of the connection between mountains, land, and sea. Imagine standing on a quiet shore, feeling the steady pressure of wind on your skin, hearing the low hum of the air moving past, and watching waves form and dissolve in endless repetition. The Gulf's windstorms show that nature is both powerful and predictable, with each cycle of air and water carrying lessons of rhythm, patience, and the gentle persistence of the natural world. Drift now along a lonely, sun-bleached shore, where desert meets ocean. The skeleton coast of Namibia is famous for its haunting beauty. Dense fog rolls in from the Atlantic, creeping across the sand and wreck-strewn beaches. This fog returns frequently, especially in the cooler months, wrapping the coastline in a soft, quiet veil. Imagine standing on a cliff, feeling the chill of mist on your skin, listening to the gentle lapping of waves against hidden rocks, and seeing shapes appear and fade in the grey haze. The fog moves slowly, weaving over the sand dunes and rocky outcrops, creating a rhythm that repeats with the seasons. It is a calm, hypnotic force, a soft blanket over the land that encourages stillness, reflection, and deep, quiet breaths. Even in its mystery, the skeleton coast shows that repetition in nature can be both haunting and soothing, a gentle lullaby for the mind. Now, drift back toward tropical seas, where clouds swirl over warm waters. The Bay of Bengal is known as a nursery for cyclones, where warm waters and moist air combine to create rotating storms. These cyclones often develop in similar paths year after year, forming a natural rhythm that shapes coastlines and the lives of the people who live nearby. Imagine watching the clouds gather over the water, slow and deliberate, stretching into spirals that shimmer faintly in the sunlight. Gentle waves rise in response to the wind, carrying patterns of motion that repeat again and again. Cyclones are powerful, yet they follow nature's cycle, forming, moving, and fading in predictable ways. Observing them from afar, the mind can relax, noting that even the strongest storms have a rhythm, a pattern repeated across centuries. The Bay of Bengal teaches that storms are not only forces of change, but also natural teachers of patience and balance. Drift now to tropical skies streaked with long, ribbon-like clouds. In northern Australia, unique clouds known as morning glory clouds appear repeatedly during certain seasons. These long, rolling formations stretch across the sky, twisting gently as they move over the Coral Sea and the Gulf of Carpentaria. They are often accompanied by brief gusts of wind and occasional showers, but mostly they glide with serene persistence. Imagine lying in the grass and watching these clouds slowly roll across the blue sky, curling and spiraling in patterns that seem almost hypnotic. Their repetition is calming, a reminder that nature has rhythms even in the air above. The morning glory clouds teach that storms and atmospheric movements do not always roar. Sometimes they move softly, predictably, and beautifully, offering both visual and mental comfort. Return now to the northern seas, where icy waters meet winter skies. In the Labrador Sea, polar lows form and fade repeatedly, creating small, compact storms over cold, quiet waters. The air is crisp, the waves rhythmic, and the snow falls in gentle sheets, drifting slowly across the frozen sea. These lows may be intense, yet their cycles are predictable, returning year after year in the same seasonal patterns. Imagine floating above the waves, feeling the soft bite of cold air, watching the ice float lazily in the currents, and listening to the wind's low hum. Each snowflake and gust becomes part of a slow, steady rhythm that can calm the mind. Observing these patterns reminds us that even the harshest places on Earth follow cycles, that repetition in nature can be a source of peace, not chaos, guiding thoughts towards stillness and rest. Drift now to vast savannas and deserts, where winds carry the story of the land. Across West Africa, the harmattan wind sweeps dry, dusty air from the Sahara over the plains and villages. These dust storms appear seasonally, their soft, fine particles drifting across the landscape in waves. The sky may turn pale orange, and the sun glimmers faintly through the haze, creating a surreal, quiet beauty. Imagine standing on a quiet plain, feeling tiny grains of dust brushing your skin, seeing the horizon shimmer with muted light, and listening to the wind as it moves steadily over the earth. The harmattan may stir the landscape, yet its repetition teaches rhythm, patience, and the subtle ways nature moves. Dust storms remind us that storms are not always loud or wet. Sometimes they are soft, persistent, and mesmerizing, carrying a calm pulse that eases the mind toward relaxation. Drift now to towering peaks that touch the clouds. High in the Andes, snowstorms sweep across jagged peaks and steep valleys with a quiet persistence. These storms arrive seasonally, sometimes lasting hours, sometimes days, carrying cold air, drifting snow, and gusts that shape the landscape. Snow collects slowly on rocky slopes, building layers that sparkle faintly in the filtered sunlight. Imagine standing on a quiet ridge, feeling the cold wind brush your cheeks, hearing the soft whisper of snow against stone, and watching clouds wrap the mountains in gentle folds. These storms form as moist air rises along the slopes, cools, and condenses into snow, a rhythm repeated each winter. Observing this cycle, the mind can feel the slow, patient shaping of the world, and the calming cadence of high-altitude storms becomes a lullaby, soothing both body and imagination. Now, climb with me to the tallest mountains on Earth. During the summer monsoon, the Himalayas become alive with clouds and rain. Warm, moist air from the Indian Ocean rises and collides with the towering peaks, forming repeating storms that cascade down valleys in sheets of rain. Thunder rumbles softly in the distance, echoing across the snow-capped summits, and lightning illuminates faraway ridges like a soft pulse. Imagine standing in a quiet valley, the rain tapping gently on leaves and rocks, listening to the distant roar of thunder, and feeling the damp, cool air settle around you. These monsoon storms follow a natural rhythm each year, shaping rivers, soil, and life below. Observing this, the mind can relax, noting how even immense mountains and storms follow predictable patterns, offering a gentle, steadying lesson in patience and calm. Drift now to snow-dusted slopes of Europe's majestic Alps. In the Alps, the faint wind sweeps down valleys, warm and dry, often preceding sudden snowstorms. These storms can appear with remarkable regularity, especially in winter, dropping soft snowflakes onto mountain trails and alpine meadows. The wind presses gently against trees, while clouds gather and swirl across jagged peaks. Imagine walking along a quiet alpine path, feeling the subtle warmth of the faint wind on your face, hearing the soft hiss of snow falling on rocks, and watching clouds drift lazily across the valleys. These storms follow the rhythms of wind, temperature, and elevation, appearing and fading in a natural cycle. Observing them can be deeply calming, reminding us that even sudden, dramatic forces are part of a repeating pattern, a steady heartbeat in the mountains. Now, journey westward to the vast Rocky Mountains. Summer afternoons in the Rockies often bring thunderstorms, forming over valleys and ridges as warm air rises from the plains below. Lightning flashes illuminate distant peaks, followed by low, rolling thunder that echoes softly across canyons. Rain falls steadily, collecting in streams and rivers, feeding forests and meadows alike. Imagine standing on a quiet ridge, feeling droplets of rain tap against your skin, hearing the distant rumble of thunder, and seeing clouds form and drift in a slow, predictable pattern. These storms follow seasonal rhythms, a repeated dance of warm and cool air, moisture, and elevation. Watching or imagining them can lull the mind, teaching the gentle lesson that repetition in nature is calming, even when it comes with power and movement. Drift northward to snowy lands under pale winter skies. In the Scandinavian mountains, winter blizzards sweep through high passes with quiet persistence. Snow falls steadily, sometimes for days, blanketing forests, fjords, and valleys in a thick, sparkling white. Winds blow across the slopes, shaping drifts and clouds alike, while distant peaks vanish and reappear through swirling flurries. Imagine standing in a quiet forest, snow crunching softly underfoot, feeling the icy air on your cheeks, and hearing the wind swirl gently above. These blizzards follow repeating winter patterns, a rhythm that has persisted for centuries. Observing or imagining this slow, steady movement can calm the mind, helping thoughts drift gently like snowflakes in the wind, a soft lullaby of cold, quiet power. Drift now back toward warm tropical waters, where clouds stretch endlessly, Along the Bay of Bengal, monsoon surges appear almost like clockwork each year. Warm, humid air rises from the ocean, colliding with cooler breezes from the land, forming massive clouds that release steady rain. These monsoon systems can persist for days, moving across coastlines in wide, sweeping sheets. Imagine standing on a quiet beach, feeling droplets of warm rain tap your skin, listening to distant thunder roll softly across the horizon, and watching the waves ripple under the rhythmic push of the wind. These repeated monsoon surges are nature's way of balancing heat and moisture, replenishing rivers, forests, and farmland. Observing or imagining their rhythm can lull the mind, teaching that even immense, powerful forces move in gentle cycles, and that calm can exist within recurring patterns of motion. Sail now across warm waters shimmering in the sun, where clouds gather slowly. The Mozambique Channel is a nursery for tropical cyclones. Warm ocean waters heat the air, causing clouds to spiral and wind to gather in sweeping, repeated motions. These storms often form in the same locations each year, traveling predictably across the channel before dissipating. Imagine watching from a distant shore as the storm's clouds twist like soft ribbons. Waves rise and fall in long, hypnotic crescendos, and a gentle wind pushes against your skin. These cyclones follow a rhythm dictated by nature: warm air, pressure, moisture, and rotation. Though powerful, the cycles repeat with patience and precision, and observing them can be deeply calming, teaching that even the mightiest storms are part of a larger, orderly pattern that shapes life and land. Drift now to a sparkling tropical sea, dotted with islands and palm trees. Across the Caribbean, trade winds blow steadily, often forming small squalls that sweep over islands in a gentle, repeating rhythm. Clouds gather and release bursts of rain, only to fade and reform elsewhere. These squalls are predictable, appearing seasonally, and moving with the warm currents of the ocean. Imagine lying on a soft beach, feeling the gentle wind on your skin, hearing the soft patter of raindrops on leaves, and watching clouds drift lazily across a turquoise sky. The trade winds carry more than air. They carry rhythm, shaping waves, currents, and the movement of clouds. Observing them softly, in imagination, can lull the mind toward calm, revealing the quiet, hypnotic cycles of nature at work. Now, drift to the sunlit coasts of West Africa, where water and sky meet. Along the Gulf of Guinea, morning squalls form as warm air rises over the ocean, meeting cooler coastal breezes. These gentle storms often appear early in the day, releasing soft rain and light winds before fading as the sun climbs higher. They return seasonally, a repeating rhythm of heat, moisture, and motion. Imagine watching the clouds stretch across the horizon, the faint shimmer of rain over the water, and feeling a soft breeze brush across your face. Waves rise and fall quietly in response to the squalls, forming patterns that repeat again and again. Observing these cycles can calm the mind, reminding us that even short, gentle storms follow a natural order, a pattern that invites peace and rest. Finally, drift once more across warm tropical waters, where air and sea swirl together. The South China Sea is a corridor for recurring typhoons. Warm, humid air rises from the ocean, forming massive clouds that spin in predictable paths. These storms often appear each season, moving slowly toward coastal regions and islands, before fading over cooler waters or land. Imagine standing on a quiet shoreline, feeling the soft, warm spray of the ocean, hearing distant thunder echo across the horizon, and watching clouds twist and roll in gentle, hypnotic spirals. These recurring typhoons follow natural cycles, guided by heat, pressure, and ocean currents. Observing them softly can lull the mind, showing that even powerful storms move in rhythm, and that the repetition of nature is both predictable and calming. Drift now to vast, icy lands where glaciers stretch endlessly. Above Greenland, Arctic cyclones form repeatedly during the winter months. Cold polar air collides with slightly warmer currents over the ocean, creating swirling clouds, gusty winds, and drifting snow. These storms move slowly but predictably, shaping the ice sheets, fjords, and frozen coastlines below. Imagine standing atop a high glacier, feeling the icy wind press gently against your face, hearing soft snow crunch underfoot, and watching clouds swirl above the jagged horizon. Though intense, these cyclones follow a natural rhythm, forming and fading in repeated cycles. Observing this from imagination, the mind can feel the calm order within the icy chaos, the soft pulse of nature, and the steady heartbeat of Earth's polar regions. Now, drift east to the icy waters north of Scandinavia. In the Barents Sea, winter gales sweep across frozen waters, lifting waves and driving clouds in endless repetition. The wind is strong, yet its movement follows predictable paths, guided by pressure differences between the Arctic and lower latitudes. Snow may fall softly, layering the sea ice, while gusts push currents in a slow, steady rhythm. Imagine standing on a quiet frozen shore, feeling the cold air brush against your cheeks, listening to the distant roar of waves under ice, and watching clouds roll steadily above. These repeated gales teach that even the harshest environments have patterns, and observing their rhythm can lull the mind toward calm, bringing focus to the slow, hypnotic pulse of nature in the high latitudes. Drift northward to a remote sea where ice floats silently. The Kara Sea, off northern Siberia, experiences recurring ice-driven storms. As cold air moves over the frozen waters, clouds gather, and snow falls steadily, drifting over ice floes. These storms form in predictable patterns each winter, shaped by the interaction of Arctic air and ocean currents. Imagine floating above the ice, feeling the faint whisper of wind, hearing the soft patter of snow landing on frozen surfaces, and seeing clouds swirl in slow, elegant arcs. Even in this remote, frozen landscape, the repetition of storms creates a rhythm, a gentle, hypnotic pattern that shows the mind that nature's cycles continue even in the most extreme environments. Now, drift to a bay where glaciers feed the sea. In Baffin Bay, polar lows and snow bands recur seasonally, sweeping over icy waters with soft, persistent snow and gusty winds. The storms form as cold Arctic air meets warmer ocean currents, creating compact but repeated systems that shape the frozen shoreline and floating ice. Imagine watching from a small fjord, feeling the cold air, hearing the subtle crunch of snow, and seeing clouds spiral slowly across the sky. The repetition of these storms demonstrates the quiet consistency of nature, showing that even intense weather events follow a predictable, calming rhythm, a gentle reminder of Earth's pulse in the far north. Finally, drift across the turbulent northern Atlantic, where waters meet volcanic lands. Near Iceland, storms track along the Icelandic low, forming and following paths that repeat year after year. Waves rise in rolling crescendos, winds sweep across cliffs and fjords, and rain or snow falls softly over rugged terrain. These systems shape coastlines and ocean currents alike, maintaining a natural, enduring rhythm. Imagine standing on a quiet cliff, feeling gusts push against your coat, listening to the distant rumble of waves, and watching clouds glide along their familiar paths. Observing the repetition of these storms can calm the mind, teaching that even the most powerful systems follow a rhythm. Nature's pulse is steady, predictable, and hypnotic, a perfect lullaby to carry thoughts gently towards sleep. Drift now to the warm waters along the equator, where trade winds meet. Along the intertropical convergence zone, clouds rise almost daily as winds from the northern and southern hemispheres converge. These collisions form tall, rolling thunderstorms that release steady rain, lightning flashing gently across the horizon. The storms are frequent and predictable, moving slowly along the equator, shaping oceans, islands, and the climate itself. Imagine floating above the sea, feeling a soft, humid breeze, hearing distant rumbles of thunder, and seeing towering clouds stretch endlessly. The rhythm of these storms repeats year after year, carrying water, nutrients, and energy across the equatorial belt. Observing this, even in imagination, the mind can relax, noting that nature moves in predictable patterns, and that the pulse of storms along the equator is both powerful and calming. Sail now across a vast blue expanse where the sun warms the waves. In the Indian Ocean, seasonal monsoons form spiraling clouds that circle the equator and sweep toward coastal regions. These monsoons repeat each year, bringing steady rains, gusty winds, and waves that rise and fall in slow, hypnotic patterns. Fishermen, sailors, and coastal villages have long observed these predictable rhythms. Imagine standing on a quiet shore, feeling the wind tug gently at your hair, listening to raindrops tapping on the water, and watching clouds swirl in graceful, repeating arcs. These monsoons are part of a natural cycle that balances heat, air, and moisture. Observing their repetition can lull the mind, showing that even immense forces follow gentle, predictable patterns, creating calm through the rhythm of the natural world. Drift now to a wide expanse of turquoise water, dotted with distant islands. Across the Pacific, squall lines form almost daily along the equator. These narrow bands of thunderstorms stretch across hundreds of miles, bringing wind, rain, and soft rumblings of thunder. They appear repeatedly, often at similar times each day, following the heat of the sun and the movement of air currents above the water. Imagine drifting in a small boat, feeling the first raindrops tap softly against your skin, hearing the distant murmur of approaching thunder, and watching clouds gather in long, rolling patterns across the horizon. The squall lines move slowly and predictably, carrying energy and moisture across the ocean. Observing this rhythm, the mind can relax, imagining the soft sway of waves and the steady, repeated pulse of tropical storms. Now, Drift to tropical islands surrounded by turquoise waves. In the Caribbean, early morning often brings small squalls, as warm sea air meets cooler breezes drifting from the land. Clouds gather, rain falls in gentle sheets, and the wind pushes softly across the water. These squalls are frequent, appearing with a natural rhythm that has repeated for generations. Imagine lying in a hammock on a quiet beach, feeling soft raindrops, listening to the wind hum through palm fronds, and watching clouds slowly drift across the sky. The repeated appearance of these squalls is calming, a gentle reminder that storms are part of a predictable cycle. The mind can relax as you observe their rhythm, letting each squall's soft arrival and gentle fade become part of a slow, hypnotic meditation. Finally, drift to warm waters where islands dot the horizon like pearls. In the South Pacific, cyclones often follow repeated paths each season, forming over warm water and moving slowly toward islands or open seas. Clouds spiral, waves rise in gentle crescendos, and winds blow steadily, shaping both land and water. These cyclones are powerful, yet their paths are predictable, creating a natural rhythm repeated year after year. Imagine standing on a quiet island beach, feeling a warm breeze brush your skin, hearing the distant low roar of waves, and watching clouds curl in soft, hypnotic spirals. Observing the repeated paths of these storms can calm the mind, showing that even immense tropical forces follow a rhythm, a gentle, reassuring pulse of nature that carries energy, water, and life in repeated cycles. Drift now to the southwestern coast of Africa, where cold waters meet warm skies. The Benguela Current flows steadily along the southwestern coast, bringing cool waters northward from the Antarctic. Along its path, storms form repeatedly, as cold air over the ocean collides with warmer coastal breezes. Clouds gather slowly, rain falls in gentle sheets, and waves rise in rolling patterns that echo the rhythm of the current itself. Imagine standing on a quiet beach, feeling the brisk wind brushing your face, hearing the soft splash of waves against rocks, and watching clouds drift lazily across the horizon. These storms follow the natural pulse of ocean currents, appearing and fading with a predictable rhythm. Observing this repetition can calm the mind, teaching that even in remote, cold waters, nature moves with quiet, persistent order, a lullaby of wind, water, and sky. Now, drift north along the arid coast, where desert sands meet the sea. Along the Namib Desert coast, fog and coastal windstorms appear regularly, especially in the early mornings. Cold ocean air meets hot desert air, forming low-lying clouds that creep across dunes and beaches. Winds sweep gently or strongly, carrying fine sand and mist, shaping both landscape and memory. Imagine standing on a quiet dune, feeling tiny grains of sand brush your skin, listening to the low whisper of wind, and watching fog drift in rolling, hypnotic waves over the desert. These fogs and coastal storms follow seasonal patterns, moving in rhythms repeated for centuries. Observing or imagining them softly can lull the mind, showing that even the harshest deserts hold gentle, predictable cycles. Drift now over the warm subtropical seas, where sun warms the waves. In the South Atlantic, subtropical storms form repeatedly along warm water belts. Clouds swirl, wind gathers, and rain falls in steady sheets that can last hours or days. These storms are part of a larger, repeating system that balances heat, moisture, and air currents across the ocean. Imagine floating above the water, feeling the gentle push of wind, hearing waves rise and fall rhythmically, and watching clouds spiral in soft, hypnotic patterns. The repeated appearance of these storms is calming, a natural demonstration that even powerful forces move in cycles. Observing them can bring a sense of quiet order, a lullaby of rain, wind, and water for the mind. Now, drift to volcanic islands rising from deep blue waters. Around the Canary Islands, trade winds sweep steadily, forming small gusts and occasional squalls that repeat seasonally. These winds push across volcanic cliffs, palm trees, and ocean waves, creating a natural rhythm of movement that shapes the island's climate and vegetation. Imagine standing on a quiet cliff, feeling the wind press gently against your cheeks, listening to palm fronds rustle softly, and watching clouds drift lazily above turquoise waters. The trade winds follow predictable seasonal patterns, a gentle reminder that the repetition of storms and gusts is calming and reassuring. Observing them softly can help the mind relax, drifting along the rhythm of wind, land, and sea. Finally, drift to sunlit shores along the tropical Atlantic. Along Brazil's coast, monsoon breezes arrive with predictable regularity, carrying warm, humid air inland. Clouds gather above rivers and forests, releasing soft rain in sheets that nurture both land and life. These breezes often repeat daily during the monsoon season, forming a natural rhythm of air, water, and vegetation. Imagine standing on a quiet beach, feeling soft rain on your skin, hearing the distant rustle of leaves and waves, and watching clouds drift lazily along the horizon. The repeated arrival and gentle fade of these monsoon breezes teaches the mind patience and calm. Observing the rhythm of nature, even in imagination, can lull thoughts toward rest as rain, wind, and waves move in harmony over the land. Drift now across warm waters, where desert and ocean meet. In the Arabian Sea, cyclones form repeatedly during the pre-monsoon and post-monsoon seasons. Warm ocean water heats the air above, creating spiraling clouds, gusty winds, and steady rain. These storms often follow similar paths, moving slowly toward coastal regions, shaping waves, coastlines, and human settlements in predictable ways. Imagine standing on a quiet shore, feeling soft, humid air brushing your skin, listening to distant thunder rolling over the horizon, and watching clouds spiral lazily in repeating arcs. Each cyclone is a part of a natural rhythm, forming, moving, and fading with clockwork precision. Observing their patterns can calm the mind, showing that even immense forces are orderly, and that nature's pulse repeats in gentle cycles. Now, drift to a vast tropical bay, where rivers meet the sea. Along the Bay of Bengal, monsoon surges appear with remarkable regularity. Moist air from the ocean rises, collides with cooler land breezes, and forms heavy clouds that release gentle yet persistent rainfall. These surges are part of a natural rhythm, shaping coastlines, rivers, and forests year after year. Imagine standing on a quiet pier, feeling soft raindrops on your skin, hearing distant thunder echo across the horizon, and watching the waves respond in gentle rolling motions. The monsoon's repeated arrival teaches that even powerful storms follow patterns. Observing them softly allows the mind to relax, letting the rhythm of rain, wind, and waves lull thoughts toward rest. Drift now along the sun-drenched coasts of Somalia and Yemen. The Kharif winds sweep along the Somali and southern Arabian coasts during the summer, bringing cool, moist air inland and soft coastal showers. These winds appear seasonally, forming a gentle but persistent rhythm over the desert and ocean alike. Imagine standing on a quiet beach, feeling the soft, cool breeze against your skin, hearing the gentle patter of rain on sand and rocks, and watching clouds drift slowly across the horizon. These repeated winds shape vegetation, coastal ecosystems, and the movement of the ocean. Observing their rhythm, even in imagination, can calm the mind, offering a gentle pulse of nature's order and quiet persistence. Now, drift along desert coasts, where mountains rise from the sand. Along Oman's coast, the Shomal winds blow steadily, lifting fine sand from desert plains and sweeping it across the shore. These winds appear regularly, especially during summer months, creating soft sandstorms that roll gently over dunes and coastal cliffs. Imagine standing on a quiet dune, feeling tiny grains of sand brushing your skin, hearing the wind hum softly as it moves across the desert, and watching the haze of dust drift lazily across the horizon. These winds repeat with the seasons, creating a soothing rhythm. Observing or imagining them can relax the mind, reminding us that even harsh, dry landscapes move in calm, predictable cycles. Finally, drift to tropical islands surrounded by shimmering waters. Around the Maldives, seasonal ocean breezes sweep across the lagoons, occasionally forming gentle squalls that bring rain and cooler air. These breezes appear regularly with the monsoon season, moving clouds and waves in soft, predictable patterns. Imagine standing on a quiet beach, feeling the gentle wind brush your face, hearing the soft patter of rain on palm leaves, and watching waves rise and fall in rolling rhythms. The repeated movement of air and water teaches that even the smallest storms follow a natural order. Observing them can lull the mind, creating a sense of calm and peaceful anticipation for sleep. Imagine a cluster of emerald islands floating in a sparkling blue ocean. Around the Fiji Islands, typhoons often form over the warm South Pacific waters. These storms build slowly, gathering clouds, wind, and rain before moving across islands in sweeping arcs. Each year, similar paths are repeated, creating a natural rhythm that shapes coral reefs, lagoons, and coastal forests. Picture standing on a quiet beach, feeling the warm tropical breeze brush your skin, hearing distant thunder rumble softly, and seeing clouds spiral gracefully above. Waves rise and fall gently in response to the wind, forming a hypnotic pattern. Observing these repeated typhoon paths, even in imagination, can calm the mind. Nature's cycles reveal that power can be predictable, and that repetition can be comforting, like the steady pulse of the ocean itself. Drift eastward, where tiny islands float like jewels on the ocean. In the Solomon Islands, early morning squalls appear almost every day during certain seasons. Warm, moist air rises over the ocean, collides with cooler breezes, and forms thin lines of clouds that release gentle rain. The squalls are brief but predictable, rolling across islands in soft, repeating rhythms. Imagine lying in a hammock, listening to raindrops patter softly on leaves, feeling the wind tug at your hair, and watching clouds drift lazily across the horizon. The waves respond with rolling motions that rise and fall in time with the storm. Observing these patterns can soothe the mind, showing that even fleeting storms follow a rhythm, and that nature moves with calm, predictable cycles that invite rest. Picture a tropical paradise where waves shimmer beneath the sun. Vanuatu lies in a corridor where cyclones form repeatedly each season. Warm waters fuel clouds that spiral, winds that rise steadily, and soft rains that nurture the islands below. Each year, storms appear along familiar paths, a natural rhythm repeated for centuries. Imagine standing on a quiet lagoon, feeling soft rain on your skin, hearing the distant low roar of waves, and watching clouds twist and turn slowly above. Waves respond to the storms in long, rolling crescendos, forming patterns that repeat predictably. Observing these rhythms can relax the mind, showing that even powerful tropical forces follow gentle, hypnotic cycles. Now, drift to rugged coastlines fringed with emerald forests. Along Papua New Guinea, coastal squalls form frequently, especially in the late mornings and afternoons. Warm air rises over the waters, collides with cooler breezes, and forms clouds that release soft showers. These squalls repeat seasonally, creating a gentle rhythm across the islands and coral reefs. Imagine walking along a quiet beach, feeling the soft patter of rain, hearing distant thunder roll across the hills, and watching waves rise and fall in gentle motion. The squall's repetition shows that even brief storms have a predictable cycle. Observing them softly can calm the mind, a gentle reminder that nature moves in patterns that are both soothing and reliable. Picture tiny atolls surrounded by endless turquoise waters. Micronesia lies in a corridor where tropical storms frequently form and move along recurring paths. Clouds spiral over the ocean, wind gathers steadily, and soft rain falls, shaping both coral reefs and shorelines. The storms appear with seasonal regularity, creating a natural rhythm across the Pacific. Imagine standing on a quiet pier, feeling warm tropical air brush your face, hearing the soft roar of waves, and watching clouds move in long, rolling spirals. Observing these repeated storm pathways can calm the mind, showing that even immense tropical forces follow predictable cycles. The rhythm of wind, water, and clouds becomes a gentle lullaby, inviting deep relaxation. High above the equator, an invisible river of air slowly shifts back and forth across the planet. This river is known as the Intertropical Convergence Zone, often called the ITCZ. It is not a place you can see on a map with borders or lines, but rather a moving belt of rising warm air that circles the Earth near the equator. Here, trade winds from the northern and southern hemispheres meet. When they converge, warm air is forced upward, and as it rises, it cools. Cooling air forms clouds, and clouds, in time, release rain. What makes this storm belt mysterious is its slow wandering. It does not stay in one place. With the seasons, it drifts northward, then southward, following the warmth of the sun. And as it moves, it brings daily thunderstorms to equatorial regions, Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands. Imagine standing beneath a vast tropical sky. The morning begins calm. Humid air rests gently on your skin. By afternoon, towering white clouds rise higher and higher, like mountains forming in the sky. Then comes the soft rumble of thunder. A heavy but warm rain falls. And by evening, the sky clears once again. This cycle repeats almost daily in some regions. Reliable, rhythmic, predictable. Even the most powerful tropical storms begin in this slow-breathing motion of the Earth's atmosphere. And knowing that the planet itself inhales and exhales in steady patterns can be deeply calming, like listening to a sleeping giant breathe. Far out over the open Pacific, where the horizon seems endless, a steady wind blows day after day. These are the Pacific trade winds. For centuries, sailors depended on them. They blow from east to west along the tropics, driven by Earth's rotation and differences in temperature between the equator and subtropics. Unlike violent storms, the trade winds are consistent, gentle, persistent. They guide clouds across the ocean and push warm surface waters toward Asia and Australia. This movement of water shapes global weather patterns, influences monsoons, and even affects rainfall thousands of miles away. Imagine floating on a wooden ship long ago. The sails are full, but not straining. The ocean rolls in long, smooth swells. The wind hums softly in the ropes. There is comfort in its steadiness. No sudden shifts. No chaos. Just a reliable flow across an immense blue world. But these winds also play a role in larger mysteries. When they weaken, ocean temperatures shift, and events like El Niño can develop, altering storm tracks across the globe. Still, most days, most years, the trade winds continue their quiet work. A planetary heartbeat. A reminder that even on a vast and restless ocean, there are steady rhythms you can trust. Beneath the surface of the South Pacific, an enormous spiral turns so slowly that you would never notice it moving. This spiral is called the South Pacific Gyre, one of the largest rotating ocean current systems on Earth. Driven by winds, Earth's rotation, and the shape of continents, it moves clockwise in a vast circular path. Unlike a dramatic storm, a gyre is subtle. It does not roar or flash. It simply circulates. Year after year, decade after decade, warm water flows westward near the equator. Cooler water returns eastward farther south. And in the center of the gyre, the ocean can become unusually calm and still. Imagine drifting above these waters. The sea looks almost motionless. Gentle swells roll beneath you. The sky stretches endlessly overhead. Yet below, the entire ocean basin is quietly in motion. This great rotating system influences where storms gather strength and where they weaken. It affects marine life, nutrient distribution, and even global climate balance. There is something profoundly soothing about slow motion on such a grand scale. A reminder that not all movement needs to be fast to be powerful. Sometimes, the strongest forces are the quietest ones. In many equatorial regions, the day follows a ritual as dependable as sunrise and sunset. Morning begins clear and bright. The sun climbs higher. Heat builds over forests, plains, and oceans. Warm air rises steadily upward. By afternoon, Clouds have grown tall and billowy, stacking layer upon layer. Then, almost like clockwork, a thunderstorm forms. These equatorial afternoon storms are not random. They are a response to daily heating. Solar energy warms the surface. Rising air cools. Water vapor condenses. And rain falls, often intense but brief. Imagine sitting on a shaded veranda in a tropical village. The air feels thick and warm. Birds grow quiet as clouds darken overhead. Thunder murmurs in the distance. Then rain pours down in silver sheets, drumming gently on rooftops and leaves. Within an hour, the storm passes. The air feels cooler, fresh, washed clean. And tomorrow, it will happen again. This repetition is one of Earth's simplest atmospheric rhythms. A daily reminder that storms do not always signal disruption. Sometimes they are simply part of a balanced, repeating cycle. To the northeast of Australia, warm waters shimmer under a brilliant tropical sun. The Coral Sea is known as a breeding ground for cyclones. Each year during cyclone season, low-pressure systems form over its warm surface. Some grow into swirling tropical storms that move toward the coasts of Australia or drift into the Pacific. Scientists track these systems carefully. They've noticed that many follow similar paths, shaped by steering winds high in the atmosphere. Even in their unpredictability, patterns emerge. Picture standing along a quiet stretch of coastline before a storm arrives. The sea grows restless. Long swells roll in from distant spirals of wind. The sky takes on a hazy softness. Birds circle lower than usual. Then the storm arrives, not suddenly, but gradually. Winds increase. Rain begins. Waves rise in steady rhythm. And when it passes, the ocean slowly settles again. Year after year, this cycle repeats. Formation, movement, dissipation, rest. The Coral Sea reminds us that storms are not isolated events. They are chapters in a long, repeating story written by heat, wind, and water. And as you listen, you might notice that even these powerful tropical systems follow gentle laws. Predictable arcs, seasonal returns, rhythms as steady as breath. Along the long, curving coastline of Brazil, warm ocean waters breathe quietly beneath shifting skies. The South Atlantic is calmer than its northern counterpart, yet it still carries its own repeating storm patterns. Off the coast of Brazil, especially in the southern regions, low-pressure systems frequently form where warm tropical air meets cooler air drifting up from Antarctica. These systems are not always dramatic hurricanes. Often, they are broad, spiraling storm fronts that bring steady rain and rolling winds along the coast. Meteorologists have noticed that many of these storms follow similar tracks, curving gently southward and then eastward into the open Atlantic. Imagine standing on a quiet beach near Porto Alegre. The sky is layered in grey. Waves roll in long, deliberate lines. A steady rain falls, not violent, but persistent. The wind hums softly against the dunes. Year after year, the same atmospheric ingredients gather in this region. Temperature contrasts, moisture, ocean currents. And the storms repeat their patterns, shaping coastal ecosystems and nourishing inland forests. Even here, where storms feel spontaneous, there is quiet order beneath them. A reminder that repetition exists even in places that seem unpredictable. Now drift westward, where cold ocean water glides silently along the edge of a continent. The Humboldt Current flows northward along the Pacific coast of South America, brushing the shores of Chile and Peru. It carries cold water from the Southern Ocean toward the equator. This cold current does something remarkable. It stabilizes the air above it. Cooler surface water reduces evaporation, limiting the energy available for tropical storm formation along much of this coastline. That is why powerful hurricanes are rare directly off western South America. Yet the Humboldt Current also helps create dense coastal fog and low cloud layers that repeat with steady rhythm. In places like the Atacama Desert, one of the driest regions on Earth, morning fog rolls in regularly from the sea. Picture standing on a rocky cliff above the Pacific. The ocean is steel blue and calm. A cool breeze brushes your face. Mist drifts slowly inland, softening the desert landscape. Though this region lacks dramatic tropical storms, it has its own repeating atmospheric dance. Fog, low clouds, cool air, and steady currents moving endlessly northward. The absence of storms can be just as fascinating as their presence. Sometimes, the mystery lies in why something does not happen. Where two great rivers meet the Atlantic, the sky often becomes a meeting place as well. The Rio de la Plata estuary, between Argentina and Uruguay, is known for recurring storm systems. Here, warm humid air from the tropics frequently clashes with cooler air masses moving up from Patagonia. When these air masses collide, they generate powerful thunderstorms known locally as sudestada, when winds blow persistently from the southeast. These storms can bring prolonged rain, rising water levels, and strong coastal winds. Imagine standing in Buenos Aires as dark clouds gather over the wide estuary. The air feels charged, heavy with moisture. Lightning flickers silently in distant clouds before thunder rolls across the flat landscape. Though dramatic, these storms are not random. The geography funnels winds. The estuary shapes pressure systems. And the same atmospheric contrasts return again and again. There is something steady about their recurrence. Each season, the same dance of warm and cold repeats. And knowing this, understanding the pattern, brings a certain calm to even the most dramatic skies. Across the ocean, on the southwestern coast of Africa, another cold current slides quietly along the shore. The Benguela Current flows northward along Namibia and Angola. Like the Humboldt Current, it carries cool water toward warmer latitudes. This cooling effect stabilizes the air and reduces the likelihood of tropical cyclone formation in this region. Instead of hurricanes, the coast experiences strong, steady winds and frequent coastal fog. The Namib Desert, one of the world's oldest deserts, relies partly on this repeating fog cycle for moisture. Imagine dunes stretching endlessly toward the sea. Morning mist drifts in from the cold Atlantic. The air is cool and still. Waves break softly against an empty shore. Though violent storms are rare here, the repetition of wind and fog forms its own kind of eternal pattern. The ocean current moves steadily. The fog returns regularly. The wind hums its familiar tune. Even in the absence of dramatic storms, there is rhythm, and rhythm is deeply soothing. High above Brazil and the southern Atlantic, a diagonal band of clouds slowly forms each summer. This band is known as the South Atlantic Convergence Zone. During the austral summer, warm moist air from the Amazon basin converges with oceanic air masses, forming a persistent corridor of clouds and rainfall. Unlike brief thunderstorms, this convergence zone can linger for days or even weeks. Rain falls steadily over southeastern Brazil. Rivers swell. Forests drink deeply. Imagine looking down from space. A long, slanted ribbon of white clouds stretches from the Amazon southeastward into the Atlantic. It appears almost like a scar of brightness across the continent. This seasonal formation repeats year after year. Though its intensity varies, its presence is reliable enough that farmers and meteorologists plan around it. Here again, storms are not chaotic bursts. They are parts of larger, recurring systems tied to temperature, ocean currents, and atmospheric circulation. And as you listen to these repeating patterns, warm air rising, cool air descending, currents flowing, clouds forming, you may begin to feel the slow, steady pulse of the planet itself. If you could trace a glowing ribbon across the Atlantic at night, you would see a warm current flowing like a secret river through the sea. That ribbon is the Gulf Stream. It begins in the Gulf of Mexico, flows along the eastern coast of the United States, and then stretches across the Atlantic toward Europe. Though invisible from the shore, it carries vast amounts of warm water northward. This steady movement of heat shapes weather patterns on both sides of the ocean. It influences storm development in the North Atlantic and helps fuel powerful cyclones that sometimes curve toward Europe. Imagine standing on a quiet coastline in Ireland. The air feels milder than it should at this latitude. Clouds roll in from the west, pushed along by winds guided by temperature contrasts created partly by this current. The Gulf Stream does not create storms alone, but it feeds them. Warmer water adds energy to low-pressure systems, helping them grow stronger before they sweep across the ocean. Yet even this powerful current moves with steady reliability. Day after day, year after year, it is not chaotic, it is structured, guided by Earth's rotation and temperature balance. A river within the ocean, flowing endlessly, calm in its constancy. Across the North Atlantic, invisible pathways guide storms the way roads guide travelers. Meteorologists call this the North Atlantic Storm Track. It is a corridor where low-pressure systems frequently form and move from west to east, especially during autumn and winter. Cold Arctic air descends from the north. Warm, moist air rises from the subtropics. Where they meet, powerful mid-latitude cyclones develop. These systems often follow similar arcs, curving toward Iceland, the British Isles, and Scandinavia. Imagine watching satellite images in slow motion. Swirls of white clouds spiral across dark blue ocean waters. One after another, storms travel along this atmospheric highway. Though each storm is unique, the track itself remains consistent. The same regions experience recurring wind, rain, and shifting skies each year. There is something deeply rhythmic about this procession. A parade of weather systems crossing the ocean, predictable in direction, even if variable in strength. And as you picture them moving in steady succession, you may feel the comfort of repetition. The understanding that even powerful forces tend to follow familiar roads. High above the clouds, far beyond where airplanes cruise, a fast-moving river of air races around the planet. This is the polar jet stream. It forms where cold polar air meets warmer air from lower latitudes. The sharp temperature contrast creates strong winds that circle the globe from west to east. The jet stream acts like a guide for storms. It steers them, shapes their paths, determines where they intensify or weaken. When the jet stream dips southward, it can draw cold air into warmer regions, triggering storm development. When it shifts northward, weather patterns adjust accordingly. Imagine this river of air flowing silently above you, invisible but powerful. Storm systems below respond to its curves and bends, like leaves drifting along a current. Though it can shift and wobble, the jet stream itself is a permanent feature of Earth's atmosphere, a guardian of atmospheric balance. It reminds us that storms are rarely isolated events. They are part of layered systems, ocean currents below, air masses in the middle, and high-altitude winds above, all moving in coordinated rhythm. A grand choreography in the sky. In the quiet stillness of winter, even lakes can give birth to storms. Around the Great Lakes of North America, a special type of storm appears again and again each winter. Cold Arctic air moves over relatively warmer lake water. As the air passes across the surface, it absorbs moisture and heat. When it reaches land, it releases that moisture as snow. This phenomenon is called lake effect snow. Cities like Buffalo and other communities downwind of the lakes experience these repeating snow bands year after year. Long, narrow clouds form over the water. Snow falls heavily in concentrated areas. Imagine standing near the shore of Lake Erie. The sky is pale gray. Snowflakes drift steadily downward. The lake surface steams faintly in the cold air. Though snowstorms can feel sudden, lake effect systems follow a clear pattern: cold air over warm water. The ingredients are simple. The outcome is reliable. Even in winter's quiet hush, the cycle continues. Water warming air. Air releasing snow. A seasonal ritual that returns each year. Soft, repeating, gentle in its predictability. Around a sea surrounded by ancient cities, autumn skies often darken in familiar ways. The Mediterranean Sea, though relatively small, produces recurring cyclones known as Mediterranean lows. These storms form when cool air moves over the still warm sea in autumn. The temperature difference energizes the atmosphere. Clouds gather, winds swirl, rain falls across southern Europe and North Africa. Imagine narrow streets in coastal Italy glistening after rainfall. Waves striking rocky shores in Greece. Thunder echoing between hills in Spain. Though these cyclones are smaller than tropical hurricanes, they appear regularly each year. The warm sea provides fuel. Seasonal cooling provides instability. And the pattern repeats. The Mediterranean has seen these autumn storms for centuries. They have shaped agriculture, architecture, and daily life. Even here, among ruins and olive groves, the sky follows its rhythm. Warmth meeting coolness. Air rising. Rain falling. Again and again. In a sea nearly enclosed by land, storms gather in softer, more contained spirals. The Black Sea, bordered by Eastern Europe and Western Asia, may seem sheltered compared to open oceans. Yet during winter, it produces recurring low-pressure systems when cold continental air sweeps across its relatively warmer waters. As the cold air moves over the sea, it absorbs heat and moisture. Clouds thicken, winds strengthen. Snow and rain fall along the surrounding coasts, in Turkey, Ukraine, Georgia, and beyond. Imagine standing along a quiet shoreline. The sky is layered in silver-gray clouds. Waves strike the coast in steady rhythm. Snowflakes begin to drift through the air, soft and silent. These storms are rarely enormous, but they return each winter with dependable timing. Cold air arrives. The sea responds. The sky releases its stored moisture. Even in a nearly enclosed basin, the ancient rules of heat and air continue their work. Quietly, reliably, season after season. Far from the open ocean, in the world's largest inland body of water, the wind still remembers how to spiral. The Caspian Sea, bordered by Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Azerbaijan, may be isolated from the global ocean, yet it produces its own repeating storm systems. During autumn and winter, temperature contrasts between land and water generate low-pressure systems that move across the basin. Strong winds sweep the surface. Waves build. Rain and snow fall along the coasts. Imagine wide open steppes under a darkening sky. The wind picks up, sweeping across the water in long streaks. The shoreline feels vast and quiet. Though cut off from the tides of the world ocean, the Caspian still follows atmospheric laws. Heat, cold, pressure, wind, the same elements at work everywhere. Even inland, even surrounded by continents, storms repeat their patterns. It is a reminder that the rhythm of air belongs not just to the seas, but to the entire Earth. Below the inhabited continents, where few cities stand and fewer people wander, storms circle endlessly around Antarctica. In the Southern Ocean, particularly between 40 and 60 degrees south latitude, powerful westerly winds blow, almost without interruption. Sailors once called this region the Roaring Forties and Furious Fifties. Here, there are few landmasses to slow the wind. Storm systems form and move continuously eastward, circling the globe in an almost unbroken procession. Imagine grey waves rising and falling beneath heavy skies. Wind sweeps across open water for thousands of miles. Clouds spiral in great sweeping arcs. These storms are not isolated events. They are part of a continuous belt of low pressure encircling the planet. There is something almost meditative about this endless motion. No beginning, no true end, just rotation. The Southern Ocean reminds us that some storms are not interruptions in calm weather. They are the climate itself, steady, circling, eternal. Near the top of the world, beneath pale winter light, small storms spin like fleeting snow-dusted spirals. Polar lows are compact but intense storm systems that form over Arctic waters when very cold air flows over relatively warmer open sea. They are smaller than typical cyclones, yet they can produce strong winds and heavy snow. And though each is short-lived, they appear repeatedly during the cold season. Imagine the Arctic Ocean under a dim, low sun. Sea ice stretches outward. Where open water remains, steam rises faintly. A tight swirl of clouds begins to form, spinning gently across the surface. Polar lows remind us that even the coldest places on Earth are dynamic. Even in silence and snow, energy moves. Air circulates. Water transfers heat upward. The storms may be small, but their recurrence is steady. Even at the edge of the frozen world, the rhythm continues. And now, let us leave Earth entirely, drifting outward into the quiet darkness of space. At the North Pole of the planet Saturn, there exists a storm unlike any other, a vast six-sided jet stream forming a nearly perfect hexagon. First observed by spacecraft in the 1980s, this strange pattern has persisted for decades. Unlike hurricanes on Earth, Saturn's hexagon is a stable atmospheric wave, a massive jet stream locked into geometric precision. It rotates with the planet, maintaining its shape year after year. Imagine looking down from orbit. Below you, clouds swirl in golden hues. And at the pole, a perfect six-sided pattern stretches, thousands of kilometers across. Though alien and distant, this storm follows the same fundamental physics as those on Earth. Rotation, fluid motion, temperature differences. Even across the vastness of space, the laws of atmosphere repeat. Storms spin. Patterns form. Motion continues. The mystery of eternal storms does not belong to Earth alone. It belongs to the universe. Before any storm can form, before any wind can spiral, a single droplet must rise. All storms, whether tropical hurricanes or quiet afternoon showers, begin with the water cycle. Sunlight warms oceans, lakes, and rivers. Water evaporates, turning into invisible vapor that rises into the sky. As it rises, it cools. Tiny droplets gather into clouds, and eventually, gravity cools them back down as rain or snow. This process never stops. The same water molecules that once fell as rain in ancient forests may now drift above the Pacific. The same droplets that fed dinosaurs could later form clouds over medieval cities. Imagine a single droplet lifting from the surface of the sea. It rises gently, joins a cloud, drifts across continents, and falls softly onto distant soil. Every storm you have heard about in this journey, every cyclone, monsoon, snow band, and squall, is simply a chapter in this endless cycle. Nothing is truly beginning, nothing truly ending, just transformation, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, over and over, like breathing. As the planet turns quietly beneath your feet, something subtle shapes every swirling cloud. Earth's rotation creates what scientists call the Coriolis effect, a gentle deflection that causes storms to spin. In the northern hemisphere, storms rotate counterclockwise. In the southern hemisphere, they spin clockwise. This simple rule holds true from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the Indian Ocean to distant seas. Imagine watching the planet from space. It turns slowly, endlessly. That turning bends the path of moving air. It curves winds. It sculpts spirals into the sky. Without rotation, storms would look very different. They would not form the elegant swirling shapes seen in satellite images. Even the great storm on Saturn, with its geometric precision, owes its structure to planetary rotation. So as you lie still, perhaps preparing for sleep, remember that the ground beneath you is gently spinning through space, and that motion quietly shapes the atmosphere above. A slow turning, a steady rhythm, unfelt, yet always present. Storms are not accidents. They are solutions. Our planet constantly works to balance temperature differences. The equator receives more sunlight than the poles. Warm air rises near the tropics. Cold air sinks near the poles. Storms are one of Earth's ways of redistributing that energy. Tropical cyclones move heat away from warm oceans. Mid-latitude storms mix cold and warm air masses. Even small thunderstorms help transfer energy upward into the atmosphere. Imagine Earth as a living system seeking balance. Where there is excess warmth, air begins to move. Where there is imbalance, winds respond. Storms may seem violent from the ground, but from a planetary perspective, they are part of a self-correcting design. Heat moves, air circulates, balance slowly returns, and then the process begins again. There is comfort in this idea that what appears chaotic is actually part of a greater equilibrium. The storm is not disruption. It is adjustment. When we say a storm never ends, what we often mean is that the pattern never disappears. No single storm lasts forever. Each hurricane eventually weakens. Each thundercloud dissipates. Each snow band melts away. But the conditions that create them remain. Warm oceans will continue to evaporate water. Cold air will continue to sink. The planet will continue to rotate. So while individual storms pass, the system that creates storms endures. It is like waves on a shoreline. Each wave rises and falls. Yet the ocean itself remains. Imagine standing beside the sea at dusk. One wave rolls in, then another, then another. None are identical. All are part of the same rhythm. Storms are like that. They are expressions of something larger, a planetary pulse that does not cease. And understanding this can feel deeply calming, because repetition means predictability. And predictability means stability. The pattern remains. The system continues. The Earth breathes on. And now, after traveling across oceans and deserts, poles and tropics, let us return to stillness. We have followed storms across the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean. We have drifted over deserts cooled by fog, across monsoon lands, beneath jet streams, and even beyond Earth to distant Saturn. Everywhere, the same truth revealed itself. Motion, circulation, return. Yet within all this movement, the planet itself remains steady, balanced in orbit, turning at a constant pace, suspended in quiet space. Imagine Earth from far away, a blue sphere wrapped in soft white spirals. Clouds drift slowly, storms spin gently, oceans shimmer. From that distance, nothing feels violent. Everything feels rhythmic. The mystery of eternal storms that never end is not a story of chaos. It is a story of cycles, of energy moving in circles, of water rising and falling, of winds curving and returning. And as the Earth continues its quiet turning, you too can rest within that rhythm. Storms will form again tomorrow, and they will fade again tomorrow. But the balance, the great breathing of the planet, continues softly through the night. And now, as the winds settle and the clouds thin, you may let your own thoughts drift, slowly, gently, into sleep.